I hated my colleague, until the night she was arrested in the office. And she is my wife. The day, and how I almost destroyed her life, still haunts me till this day. She had always been the most beautiful girl, but I hated to admit it, and it hurts every day, having to be working with her, as a colleague. And worst still, she was my bitter rival in the office. No one will understand how it felt, when every meticulous effort I put into a project, always came up short of hers. Why was it looking as if she was gradually becoming the yardstick of my growth? Everyone in the office saw her as my nemesis, but right now at this moment, I was the only one that holds the evidence. The only person that can save her from the custody of the policemen who were about to take her to jail. Me, of all people. The first time Adrian Nuru wished that Serena Dante would disappear forever, he meant it. He stood in the open office floor of Halcyon Dynamics Limited, with his jaw tight, fists clenched, while watching as the CEO applauded her presentation with delight. Again as usual, the room buzzed with admiration and excited faces from colleagues, which consequently commanded a growing respect for a girl, who was already beautiful beyond words. Even though her beauty and charm had nothing to do with her growing reputation, her work and accomplishment was good and right there for everyone to see and judge. Serena stood at the head of the table, poised, intelligent, devastatingly composed. She wore power like a tailored suit that was too pricey. She was calm, controlled, and precise. And Adrian hated her for it, and his heated jealousy was reaching its boiling point. He hated how she dismantled his proposals with surgical politeness that made the company to see her as their savior. How she corrected his financial projections mid-meeting, making him confused and draining off his well-rehearsed confidence. How she never raised her voice, but always won, with everyone seemingly on her side as if they were always waiting for her to scrutinize and reveal something that they are all missing. But what he hated most, was the fact that she saw through him. She saw him through his confidence, through his sarcasm. And definitely, she saw him through the mask he wore to hide the boy who grew up with nothing. She saw him. And he couldn't stand it. Halcyon Dynamics Limited was not a normal regular office establishment. It was an empire built on fierce competition within the blocks and outside. Executives didn't climb ladders through grades and invested time. They clawed their way up, crushing and inflicting what smells like pains and blood on every step of the ladder. Adrian and Serena were both senior strategists, and both top contenders for the soon-to-be vacant position of executive director. The CEO had made it clear, there will be only one. From that moment, the office became a battlefield for the obvious two perspectives. Emails turned into weapons, and deadlines turned into traps. Board meetings into psychological chess matches, where everyone else was a spectator while the CEO sat as the referee. If Adrian proposed an expansion plan, Serena found the financial flaw. If Serena introduced a restructuring idea, Adrian highlighted the operational risk. Colleagues watched their clashes like primetime television show of flair. They were brilliant. They were relentless. They were equals. And neither could stand the other. One night, which was just a month before the final evaluation before the promotion, Adrian stayed late in the office, trying to finalize projections. As he walked past Serena's office, he heard something that he should ordinarily ignore and mind his business. A cry. Not soft tears, but broken ones. He froze, and analyzed what he heard. He looked intently through the glass wall and he saw her. Her head was buried in her arms, while her phone lay beside her. On speaker. A male voice shouting through the speaker of the phone, and Adrian summoned all his arsenal of his ears to clearly capture the words. You think your big job makes you untouchable? You owe me. Serena whispered, I said I'll send it, I promise you that I will. Not enough. The line disconnected, and Adrian quickly stepped back before she saw him. He didn't know what unsettled him more, that Serena, the invincible Serena, was vulnerable. or that he felt an unfamiliar ache in his chest. After the incidents, Adrian was troubled all night, but to his surprise, by the next morning, she was perfect again. Untouchable as usual. It was as if the incidents of last night had never happened. Marcus Tutu, the company's largest investor, arrived unannounced. Marcus was dangerous and most respected for his aura and global influence. He was very charismatic and also manipulative. Known for crushing businesses he didn't control. He called a private strategy meeting that only 3 people attended. In attendance was Marcus, Serena, and Adrian. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "One of you will lead this company soon," he said smoothly. "But loyalty matters to me," he said as his gaze lingered on Serena. At that moment, Adrian felt a wave of defeat as though Serena was the favorite. And somehow, Adrian didn't like the way Marcus looked at her. It was not professional. It was seemingly predatory, as far as Adrian could tell. After the meeting, Marcus asked Serena to stay behind. Adrian waited outside longer than he should have. Until the door opened 20 minutes later. Serena stepped out in a hurry, looking pale and unsettled. Marcus followed a few steps behind her with a smile on his face. "Think about my offer," he said quietly to her, but she kept walking without response. 2 weeks later, Marcus Tutu was found dead in his penthouse. Stabbed wounds were deep, merciless, and intended to terminate him instantly. Sitting right on top of the kitchen counter was a strategically placed clue. Could this murder be a premeditated frame-up? A broken wine glass was the clue on the kitchen counter. To the shock of everyone, it had Serena Dante's fingerprints. She had visited him that evening, and security cameras confirmed it. Police arrived at the office the next morning with a report, establishing the fact that there was no sign of forced entry. Adrian was in the middle of a presentation when officers walked in. "Serena Dante, you are under arrest for the murder of Marcus Tutu." Her eagle eyes that were attentively scrutinizing Adrian's presentation with dedication, transmuted to shocking surprise and undisguised fear. The room shattered into chaos. Serena didn't fight back and she didn't scream. She only looked at Adrian with a beseeching note that got him wondering what she could have been thinking at that moment. And for the first time, Adrian saw fear. Controlled but an unmasked fear in her. She probably may have known, or suspected that she had been framed by Adrian. Could it be that she actually did it to free herself from whatever they got going on between her and Marcus? But as they cuffed her, she whispered something with gentle confidence. "I didn't kill him." The media devoured the story. Corporate executive murders investor. Ambition turns deadly. Office rivalry ends in blood. The board suspended her immediately and the atmosphere presented a vast room Adrian's comfort. Adrian was offered the executive director position within days, and the future looked promising. It should have been a victory if he had a competition before earning the position. Instead, it felt like rot. A kind of vacuum seemed to have enveloped the company, and no matter how hard he worked, he felt his work was deficient in quality because there was no opposition, and no competition. He visited her in jail and felt pity for her with what he saw there. The room smelled of metal and despair. "You didn't do it," he said, trying to ascertain her last whisper in the office before she was taken away by the police. She looked at him through the glass, retrospectively. "No," she answered firmly, but in a drained and defeated voice. "Then tell me what happened," Adrian demanded. Silence followed. Then she said, "He tried to blackmail me." She opened up. Adrian's jaw tightened. "For what?" She hesitated. Then said the words that changed everything. "My brother." She explained. Her younger brother owed dangerous people money, and Marcus had discovered it. He offered to make it disappear if she agreed to push the company into a merger that would give him full control, but she refused. He threatened to expose her family's connection to criminal debt networks. The threat was much and the pressure enormous. She went to his penthouse to end it, but certainly not to kill him. He got aggressive, she said quietly. He grabbed me tightly with evil intention. I struggled to free myself and managed to push him off me, and he fell. A glass broke. Her voice trembled. I left him there, but alive. About an hour later, Adrian walked out of that jail with one truth burning in his mind. He didn't care about the promotion any more than he cared about her. He resolved to look into the case, even if it meant taking laws into his hands. He dug into Marcus's records, including his private accounts and encrypted transactions. He found something disturbing, but motivating. Marcus had been laundering money through shell companies tied to Serena's brother's creditors. Marcus wasn't just blackmailing her, but he was also working with them. Adrian uncovered security footage from the penthouse elevator, and discovered that another visitor arrived after Serena left. On a closer look, the visitor turned out to be Daniel Mercer, the regional director of their company. The same man who had quietly supported Adrian's promotion all along. The same man who once told Adrian, sometimes obstacles remove themselves. Adrian felt sick and couldn't believe the revelation. Adrian eventually got himself together and strategically confronted Daniel privately. You were there the night Marcus was murdered, he said to Daniel. Interestingly, Daniel didn't deny it, and simply said, Marcus was becoming unpredictable, Daniel said calmly. He threatened all of us, and was desperate for something that was detrimental to the company. You killed him. Daniel's expression hardened with a disguised fury. He was bleeding when I arrived, so I finished what she started. She stupidly left the glass there, but I took the knife that finished the job with me. It can't be traced to me because they can't find the murder weapon. Adrian stepped back and said, You framed her and you don't even have any remorse about it. Daniel shrugged and said, She was convenient. The air between them turned deadly. You're going to prison, Adrian said. But Daniel laughed and said, And destroy the company? Investors will flee, and certainly, employees will lose their jobs. Think carefully. Do you know how many innocent families that are dependent on the well-being of this company? Do you know how many people will suffer if this company goes down? That night, Adrian didn't sleep well at home. Should he just expose Daniel, and risk the company collapsing? Or mind his business and stay silent, and let an innocent person, Serena, rot in jail? He made his choice. The board meeting was the most explosive in the company's history. Adrian projected the penthouse elevator footage to the board members and a few members of staff who were eavesdropping and watching from the glass wall. The financial trails, the shell companies, the payment links. Gasps and silence murmuring was well excused as it filled the atmosphere. Daniel attempted to spin it to his advantage to be seen as the hero for saving the company. But Adrian was no fool. He came well prepared, and wasted no time as he immediately played the final card, a recorded confession by Daniel himself, which clearly exposed his motive. Daniel had underestimated him during their confrontation, and had no reason to suspect that Adrian had recorded everything. But he did. The police that had been invited earlier by Adrian, to blend in and secretly observe the board meeting, arrested Daniel that afternoon. Serena was released 2 days later, and all the charges were dropped. Serena returned to the office the following months to a warm reception and appreciation for standing her ground against Marcus in spite of everything. Adrian watched her from a distance and admitted to himself that she will always be loved by many. But this time, he did not harbor any feeling of jealousy in him. Serena stood silently in appreciation. Not triumphant. Quiet. Changed. The office no longer felt like war. It felt fragile. The entire working environment felt simple and ordinary. One evening, Adrian found her alone in the conference room. The same room where they once fought tooth and nail for dominance. "I was wrong about you," he said calmly with a gently smile. She gave a faint smile in return. "We were both wrong about each other, I guess." He stepped closer. "I hated you because you were everything I feared I couldn't be." She looked at him, with her eyes looking soft and beautiful. "And I pushed you because I saw how good you were, and I wanted you to get even better. I really wasn't keen on the promotion. I already had plans to turn it down if it eventually came to me, because I knew that the likes of Marcus will mount pressure on me against the company. And I was already venerable to him because of what he had on my brother." Silence settled between them, while Adrian wondered widely. He realized what a wonderful and sincere person she really was on the inside. Then she said something that stunned him. "I forgive Daniel." Adrian blinked. "What?" "I don't forgive what he did. But I refuse to carry that anger. I've seen where ambition without mercy leads." Her voice steadied. "I almost became that kind of person at some point, but grace guided me." That was the moment Adrian realized, he didn't love her because she was strong. He loved her because she chose softness after surviving a scandalous brutality. The board made a decision, because Halcyon dynasty needed rebuilding, and most importantly, restoration of trust was most needed. They appointed 2 executive directors, Serena Dante and Adrian Nuru. Not rivals anymore, but working in harmony as partners. Months passed, and the company stabilized. Revenue returned and employees felt safe again. Then one evening, Adrian led Serena to the rooftop of the building. City lights stretched endlessly below. "This is where I first decided I hated you," he admitted, but she laughed softly. "I remember. You wouldn't even look at me." He dropped to one knee. "I don't hate you now." Her breath caught. "I never did. I was just afraid that if I got close, I'd lose." She touched his face gently. "You were never my enemy." He slipped the ring onto her finger. And under the same sky that has harbored so many clouds since their first battle line was drawn, they chose a forever in love with each other. Years later, people still tell the story. About the rivalry, the murder, the betrayal. But that's not the part that matters. The part that matters is this: sometimes love doesn't begin with butterflies. Sometimes it begins with war. With pride. With misunderstanding. With pain. And sometimes, the greatest act of strength is the simplest forgiveness.